Hello and welcome to lecture 2 of the LSM 558 course, Supply Chain Risk Management. In the first unit, or in lecture 1, we looked at risks, what they were, how they come about, whether there is the need to manage them. We determined that there was the need. If there was the need, how did we get to where we are, where more attention has to be paid to managing risk? And then we looked at a small exercise in which an organization had the option of deciding on the distribution channel to use if they had to increase responsiveness using probabilities because they were dealing with risk. Again, my name is Abdul Samad Muntaka. In this unit, we want to look at what you are very familiar with. You treated this as a course on its own, and therefore I'm going to be very brief in my elaborations, and that is supply chain management. Remember, this course is managing supply chain risk or supply chain risk management. You can't manage the risk of something you don't know. That is why it has become imperative that even though you have been taken through a whole course called supply chain in the first semester, it is imperative for us to just remind ourselves of a few of the issues under supply chain, so that when we are talking about managing the risk, we are sure about what we are saying. Now, in this model, we'll look at the definitions, the structure of the supply chain, the aim of the supply chain, activities of logistics, importance of logistics, and then aligning supply chain to business strategy. And so you will find that it is not more than what you know already. Like I said, this is a reminder, because a lot of what we'll be discussing in this course has to be put in context. And it is in which context? It is in the context of supply chains. As for risk management, we have several models, we have so many angles, we have so many things that comes under it. But the particular perspective from which we are looking at risk is the supply chain. So the supply chain comes from the fact that almost all organizations, in fact, I can say all organizations move materials in one way or another. Either it is a manufacturer collecting something from the supplier, a wholesaler taking something from the manufacturer, a customer moving the goods, or the customer receiving goods. Whatever happens, there is some movement. This movement involves three things, like we have said: money, products, and information. Materials are purchased with money, and when they are purchased, we make products out of them. And information must be passed through for this to happen. So, in a nutshell, we say that every time a company buys, sells, rents, whatever, someone has to make sure that whatever has been purchased or sold is moved. So, in that case, what is a material? It includes everything that an organization moves. Please take note. Now, one of the interesting questions at this point to ask is, organizations move people. Are people materials? And the answer is no. People are not materials. So, when we say that materials include everything that an organization moves, it is devoid of human beings. Human beings are not materials. But the materials can be tangible or intangible. Goods, if you are moving, if you are in the production of shito, and you move fish, oil, containers, whatever. They are tangible. You can see them, you can touch them. Then we have the intangible ones that you can not touch, like information. I have passed information. You can't see or touch that information. Then we say that a power station collecting fuel from a supplier, a farmer moving wheat to a wholesaler, a computer manufacturer delivering PCs to a warehouse, personal computers, a television company delivering entertainment to viewers. All these are forms of materials. Some of them are tangible, they can be seen, like delivering fuel, or some cannot be seen, like a telephone company providing communication service. You can call. That call has the tangible bit, and those things you can see, the gadgets, and the intangible bit, those you cannot see. Then a research company creating new knowledge. So, material. So we consider everything that an organization moves at material, which can be raw, components, finished products, people, information, paperwork. Please, I have indicated that people, persons are not materials. Please take note of that. Persons are not material, they are people. They are included in this list because they are part of what organizations move. Messages, knowledge, consumables, energy, money, software, and so on. Now, the management function is also responsible for the movement of materials. And usually, this function is logistics. So technically, when we talk about logistics, we are looking at the function in organizations that is responsible for what? Movements. Moving materials. And we have listed the materials. I forgot to enumerate in lecture 1 that when you go through these videos, when you watch them, don't forget the aim of any examination that you must be assessed on is to find out how much of this do you appreciate. It's not a matter of what you remember. It's not a chew, pour, pass, and forget issue. No. It is about what you appreciate. So you shouldn't just learn these things in their raw form. Try to relate it to your organization. Try to create pictures in your mind of them. That enhances your understanding, and it enables you to be able to weather the storm when you have to be examined. So, moving materials into the organization is inbound. So that is referred to as inbound logistics. If you are moving them out of the organization, then we have outbound logistics. Now, when we are moving materials within the organization, normally, like moving the materials here and there and so on, that function falls under materials management. You don't just move. You are moving the material because it is where it is not needed, and you want to move it to where it is needed. You are moving it because it may not be placed well. Where it is placed is not where it should be placed, and therefore you are moving it to where it should be placed well. We don't move materials for fun. That is why the moving materials within the organization comes under the realm of materials management. But you know that organizations don't work in isolation, and each organization acts as a customer when it buys materials from its own suppliers. So I am Nestle Ghana. I am producing Milo. I buy cocoa beans from Cocoa Board. I have become a customer to Cocoa Board. Cocoa Board buys the cocoa beans from farmers. Cocoa Board has become a customer to the farmers. The farmers become a supplier, so they become suppliers to Cocoa Board. Cocoa Board is a supplier to Nestle Ghana. So, no matter what, every now and then, organizations are either serving or acting as suppliers when they deliver materials, or they are acting as customers when they take delivery of materials. So a wholesaler is a customer when buying goods from manufacturers, and is then a supplier when selling them out, like I mentioned earlier. The same applies to a component maker. So when these organizations are linked together, their activities are linked together to create that seamless flow, then we say there's a supply chain. And therefore, the supply chain consists of a series of activities and organizations that move materials through their journey from the initial suppliers to the final customers. According to the Institute of Logistics, the supply chain is a sequence of events. So one event leads to another, another event leads to another. So sequence of events. What is the intention? To satisfy the customer. So any supply chain that does not at the end of the day satisfy the customer has failed in its objective. According to the Institute again, it is the flow of materials, goods, and information. Normally, and they pass between organizations. And they are usually linked in a way by processes, by activities, by integrated information systems. So, a supplier has a computer on which it informs me through an email that my goods have been shipped and they are on their way, and provides me a code through which I can track. That is both a process and activities. Now I sit behind my computer and I'm able to access the information. This information I've been able to access is giving me a certain peace of mind that whatever I have ordered is on its way. So you see that integrating our information systems has allowed each of us to stay in their own premise to while the supplier has passed information to me, and I have also been able to receive the information through processes and activities. That's according to Peck. This definition I have told you about is according to Beck. Christopher, in 1998, believes that the supply chain is a network of organizations that are linked through both their upstream and downstream, and the whole aim is to produce value in the name of who? The ultimate customer. Muntaka and Frimpong argue that the supply chain, in addition to all that has been described already, is a mechanism that links a number of companies with a common goal. What is this goal? To improve each other's lot. No organizations link together to make each other worse. Organizations link together to make life of each other beneficial. So the farmer is collaborating with Cocoa Board because he doesn't want the cocoa to stay in his premises for nothing. Cocoa Board is collaborating with the farmer because it is existing to purchase cocoa, and without the farmer, they will not exist. So you will find that Muntaka and Frimpong's definition looks at the supply chain as not just a network, not just a series of flows, but also as a mechanism. And the aim of this mechanism that is linking the organization is to improve their lot so that each other is benefited, and then at the end they add value to the customer. This value they have added should lead to profit. If you look at all these definitions, then it tells us that the simple view of a supply chain in terms of structure is the movement of a product through a series of organizations, which each of them adding a small value. So, Cocoa Board takes the cocoa from the farmer. Cocoa Board creates place and time value for the organizations that produce chocolate, because they are able to take the cocoa from the farmer and make it available to these companies where they need them. So they have created place value. And they also make it available to them at the time they need them. They have created what? Time value. So, depending on which organization is the focal organization, then we create the upstream and downstream. I am not going to go through this because you have been taught this as a complete course. But anytime we talk about the upstream, we have a focal company. So we have the focal company. On this side of the company are suppliers. Suppliers of different kinds. On this side of the organization are wholesalers, distributors, retailers, and customers. So based on this focal organization, this is upstream supply chain, and this is downstream supply chain. So it is common to ask, who are those found in the downstream supply chain? And you find that it is distributors, wholesalers, retailers, agents, all those associated with, give me a minute, all those associated with moving the product to the final consumer. When we talk about who are those in the upstream, then we are talking about suppliers of different kinds. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Remember, the tiers start from the manufacturer or the focal organization. So you can see a typical example of a supply chain, and the final good producer is the focal firm, this one, in the orange color. All those in the yellow color are in the downstream, and those in the red or pink color are in the upstream. So there is flow of material, there is flow of money, there is flow of information in between these organizations. Flow of money is mainly from the consumer. So flow of money is usually from downstream. Flow of money. It doesn't mean that there is no flow of money from upstream, but it is mainly from downstream. Flow of material is usually from upstream. So flow of material. Because don't forget, as soon as somebody who is a customer provides a material, he ceases to be in the downstream, he moves to upstream. That's why we are saying that flow of material is mainly from upstream. But don't forget, we have those organizations that have the reverse version. For example, I buy a bottle of Coke. I finish taking the Coke and I have to return the bottle. But the bottle is a material. That notwithstanding, we still say that it is mainly from upstream. What of information? Information is two-way. That's why the arrows for information are two. So flow of information. We have information flowing from customers to manufacturers and to suppliers, because whatever the customers need, manufacturers or focal organizations take it on board and inform suppliers so that they supply them what they need to be able to meet the customers' need. And so the suppliers also inform the focal organizations of what is available and whether what they are requesting is possible or not. And that also comes this way. So if you look at these three arrows, it can have serious concerns when it comes to multiple choice examination, because we know that flow of money can be two-way, but it is mainly from the customer, and so it is mainly from the downstream. Flow of material can be two-way, but it is mainly from what? Upstream. It is information that flows both ways. If you don't carefully analyze this, you will look at the slide, but you will not see what I have said. So, in terms of tiers, I was just telling you in the upstream, we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Your tier number is smaller or bigger depending on how close you are to the focal firm. So, we start numbering from 1. So, those immediately close are tier 1. Those a little away are tier 2. And usually the source are tier 3. So, the raw material supplier will supply somebody. So, I take cocoa beans. I process the cocoa beans into cocoa powder. And then I sell it to an agent. And that agent sells it to Nestle Ghana. So, the farmer who gave me the cocoa is tier 3 supplier. I, the one who processed the cocoa to cocoa powder. If you want to strictly still look at it as a raw material or as a product that is being supplied, then I am tier 2. And then tier 1 is the agent I sold the cocoa powder to, who in turn sold it to Nestle Ghana, who transforms it into Milo or any other product. Then we go down to the downstream, and we also have tier 1, tier 2, tier. But normally we don't use tiers to describe the downstream. But if you did, you will not be wrong. Wholesalers and consumers are first tiers consumers, customers. Distributors and wholesalers are generally first tier customers. Wholesalers and retailers are second tier, and then third tier are final consumer. These are also multiple choice examinable things that you need to take note of. Who are the tiers? So you are a particular organization is described in a context, and you are asked whether they are first tier customers or first tier suppliers, or what is their tier in the tier chart. What are the aims of the supply chain? You know, the overriding aim is to manage the movement and storage of materials through all the organizations and all the links through which the product will pass until it gets to the customer, and make the customer satisfied. So customer satisfaction is a key component in the aim of the supply chain. And then low costs. So if you do all this and then you bring it to the customer at very high cost, you have not achieved the aim of the supply chain. So inherent in this aim of the supply chain is customer service, which is considered as the primary role of the logistics within an organization. So anytime an organization succeeds, it is because the customers are satisfied. When an organization fails, it is because the customers are unhappy. But it is important to note that a major challenge of achieving customer satisfaction is that each customer expects something different. And they judge the products in a whole new form. They have their own way of judging the product, and the factors they consider are numerous. So what you can do is to try and do your best. Stay close to your customers, know what they need, talk to them as much as possible, and see the best you can do. So logistics activities have three main functions. First is supply chain design. That is the strategic function that finds the best structure for the supply chain. When we talk about best structure, you see, best structure will normally take into account Number of members. How many actors should be in the supply chain? Don't forget the number of members will give rise to what? The length. The length of the supply chain. Then its breadth. What is its scope? What and what does it include? So the length in terms of the actors and which distances it covers. The breadth in terms of the number of items that must flow through it. The locations. The systems put in place to ensure that it functions. So systems to be used or used. And then the kind of relationships that we will keep. Are we pursuing a one-off relationship where organizations come in and go out, or we are looking at permanent relationships where organizations come in and stay on for some time as long as they are needed, or anytime there is the need for that particular function, we fall on this particular organization. That is supply chain design. So, just to alert you, for the purposes of multiple choice organization, you can be asked, for example, which of the following is not part of supply chain design? Or it can come in the form of the aim of logistics activities. Among the following is a function, a strategic function for the logistics department. Then we will list all this and also add to find the best structure for the supply chain. And you find that in this case, all of them will be correct, but to find the best structure for the supply chain will be more correct than all of them. And that is the difference between multiple choice and objectives. That said, at this point, the knowledge is what you need. Objectives are such that only one answer is correct. Multiple choice are such that all answers can be correct. One answer is more correct than them. That is why it needs thinking. It needs intellectual analysis. It is not just an issue of read and know the answer offhand. Like I said, at this point, as you go through the course, it is important that you are cautioned about how to prepare for examinations also. But concentrate on the knowledge, because I have always said, if you go through this slide and you don't acquire the knowledge, the multiple choice will never let you pass. So, to borrow the words of the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, I like to say that if you learn the course or if you go through the slides and this video just to pass the examination will expose you. Seek ye the knowledge, and all else shall be added unto you. The next logistics activity is procurement or purchasing. So here, this function initiates the flow of materials into the organization by sending purchase orders to our suppliers. It can be a request for quotation, it can be a request for price quotation, all those other requests. And then beyond that, developing the major links with upstream operations. So take note of this. You see that the procurement or the purchasing function of the logistics activities is responsible for developing the major links, but with which aspect of or with which part of the supply chain? The upstream. It is important to remember that. Then we have inward traffic or transport. That is making sure that the materials move from suppliers to the organization's receiving area. So the logistics activity are generally three: supply chain design, procurement or purchasing, and inward transport or traffic. Under each of them, under supply chain design, the aim is to determine the best structure for the supply chain. Under procurement or purchasing, it is to initiate the flow and to develop major links with upstream operators. And then it is also we also have under inward transport is to make sure the materials move in. So anytime any of these fails in an organization, we must blame the logistics department or the logistics function. Other functions of the logistics department include receiving. So you do the necessary checks and accept deliveries into the organization. Then we have warehousing or stores. You move materials into storage. And take care of them and make sure that they are readily available when needed. Then we have stock control. That is setting the policies that will govern inventory, stock levels, procedures for taking and for stocking, and then the patterns of purchase. Are we going to do EOQ? What kind of purchasing arrangement or warehouse management strategy are we going to put in place? Then we have materials handling. That involves making sure materials are moved to the organization and then they are properly stored. If you need equipment, you must make them available. If you need loading boys, you have to make them. Then we have order picking. So this is where the logistics function ensures that materials are moved from stores and assembles them for departure, ready to go to the places that they should go to. This will include finished products, where people have placed orders and these orders must be delivered. So you can carefully see that the logistics department is key to the survival of any organization. Whether the organization will succeed or not lies with the logistics department. So in some organizations, they call their general manager the chief logistics officer. Others call them the chief operations officer. Many people are running away of general manager, executive director. What are you directing? Then we have the onward transport. That is, takes the materials from departure areas and delivers them to customers. Then we have the physical distribution. That is when the finished products are made available to the customers. This is where logistics activities come into contact with the downstream operations. Remember, under purchasing function, they must initiate the flow and also make sure that they build the right relationship. Under physical distribution, they are coordinating with the downstream to make sure that this product is delivered to customers. Then we have recycling, returns, and waste management. This is often referred to as reverse logistics or reverse distribution. And normally, it is bringing back. So this is the organization doing forward logistics. So forward logistics will normally take products away from, otherwise referred to as outward transport. Then we have reverse logistics, so this is reverse logistics. This one moves from customers and retailers and so on back into the organization. And then we have communication. Flow of materials are usually associated with money and information. So the logistics department must coordinate these activities to ensure that the complexity of the supply chain is reduced and then the movement is smooth. To this end, do we need to say logistics is important? I don't think so. I am sure by now you are convinced that the logistics function is key and very, very important. So, first, in summary, what are the importance? Now, very few human activities do not depend on flow of goods from one point to another. Therefore, logistics ensures this, and so it is important. And without logistics, no materials will move. There will be no operations, there will be no products delivered, and no customers will be served. This is according to Shapiro and Haskett. And they said this way back in 1985. At that time, I was just getting ready to go to secondary school. So you can imagine that the importance of logistics have been noticed or has been noticed long ago in the world. In Ghana, it's quite recent, because I don't know how many of you remember, and if you be sincere, you'll find that in most Ghanaian organizations, when somebody is employed as a messenger and the person shows good behavior and loyalty, the person is promoted to stores, to be the stores manager, technically managing the logistics of the organization. The introduction of logistics professionals into the whole management of the supply chain and the logistics function started somewhere in 1995 or so. It's quite recent. One common element with customer satisfaction is that it always depends to a large extent on logistics. Don't forget, it is logistics who will source the materials. It is logistics that will make these materials available. It is logistics that will take the finished product to the customer. And therefore, if logistics sources the wrong material, the wrong product will be produced, and the wrong product will be developed, will be delivered to the customer. If the logistics function misbehaves, is rude, the customer will also be unhappy. So, availability of materials depends on stocks. The delivery time depends on transport. Damage can be prevented when we have good material handling policies and processes. And the price is affected by logistics cost. Don't forget, the price build-up for any product takes logistics cost into account. So, generally, we summarize, or people often summarize, the aim of the supply chain in terms of getting the right material to the right place at the right time, from the right source, with the right quantity, at the right price. Take note of this. This is a big summary of the aim of the supply chain. And that is why we often say that marketing is a subset of logistics or supply chain management. Because the aim of marketers is generally to get the right product to the customer at the right time, in the right condition, and at the right price. And all that can be found in this aim of logistics. So, logistics managers must make sure they aim at fast deliveries, low cost, little waste, quick response, high productivity, and all the things that you can find here. If the morale of the staff is low, then you can bet that these activities will not be achieved. So, it is important to know that they really suggest that the route for achieving an overriding aim of high customer service and low cost is what? Staff morale. Joke with your staff, and all the things you want to achieve with your customers will not happen. Logistics system can also help in creating high returns, because don't forget, they contribute to the total asset portfolio. You need equipment here, you need warehouse. In the warehouse, you need some storage material, some equipment, and so on. So as you put all this together, your asset portfolio also increases. A planned production operation reduces setup time, because when you plan the production setup, you are able to set it up faster. It reduces idleness, and then it enhances the capacity to produce more customer-specific products that attract premium price. That's the logistics function, where we have customer segmentation. We segment the customers, and we are able to make sure that we meet their demands at premium price. That's why we have first class. So you go into the plane, it's same plane, but you see that the leg space is bigger, the seat is bigger, the stretch is also more. So somebody in first class can stretch their seat to be like a bed. Meanwhile, business class cannot stretch to that level. Economy can only stretch small. It's just to create the difference. But then, the first class person pays premium price. sometimes 3 times or 4 times what the person in the economy is paying. Aligning the supply chain with business strategy. It is important to note that a company's supply chain is by no means an integral part of its approach to market its services. This is services. So, the supply chain needs to respond to market requirements and do so in a way that supports the company's business strategy. If the business wants the product chilled, the supply chain must ensure that it is supplied chilled. Otherwise, the customer will not patronize the product. So, in order to meet the market requirement and stay competitive and profitable, a company's supply chain must deploy strategies that are oriented to efficiency. Efficiency is an input-output ratio. So you are looking at the inputs available to you in the supply chain and ensuring that you get the best out of them. At the same time, you must be responsive. You mustn't take all the time in the world to do things. If a supply chain takes all the time in the world to make a delivery to a customer, that delivery is useless because the customer will have complained and even lost interest in the product. And then a combination of efficiency and responsiveness to achieve the strategic fit. The strategic fit is where the doings or strategies deployed by the supply chain enables the supply chain to fit the organizational business strategy. Don't forget, strategy is long-term positioning. So an organization has a long-term position. It wants to be somewhere. It must do so by ensuring that it is able to meet certain market conditions, certain process conditions, and this must be supported by the supply chain. If the supply chain doesn't support it, then the supply chain has not achieved its aim, and we can technically say it is useless. So now the question is yours. How is your supply chain aligned with your business strategy? So at this point, what I need you to do is think of your organization. What is the business strategy? If you are in the public sector, what is the strategy? Don't forget, it is to provide the most amenities to the citizen. So how is your supply chain aligned to help you achieve that? If you are in the private sector, your aim is to achieve the most value for the customer by giving them products that meet their demand at the right time, in the right quantity, the right price, and so on and so on. So, how is your supply chain supporting that? So, sit down and do a small mapping. At this point, pause this video and then do this thinking. Allow yourself to think through what is your business strategy and how is the supply chain of the organization supporting it. And you may be able to identify some bottlenecks that needs improvement. So we say that there are 3 steps. First, understand the market that your company serves. What is the nature of the market? Who are in it? What do they want? Define the strengths or core competence of your organization and the role the company can or could play in serving this market. So let's say that you are GASM. Your customers or the market you serve is the construction industry, because it is the construction industry that uses cement. What is the nature of the construction industry? We have the formal and the informal. The formal are companies that win contracts, that have plans for purchasing cement. And then the informal are those that are everyday works. They get a small job, they go to the market to buy cement. How are you going to make sure you meet all these people? So you are now looking at your strengths or core competence. So what is the core competence of GASM to be able to achieve or meet this market? And you will find that what GASM may have to do is to what they are doing now, to work with key distributors, wholesalers, and retailers. So they have been able to develop a chain in which a major distributor can even serve the retailers that will have otherwise gone to the GASM company. All that is to reduce distance and costs. And as a result, GASM has been able to standardize prices for southern sector, for the middle belt, and for the northern sector, so that the bag of cement in the northern sector is the same everywhere. The bag of cement in the middle sector is the same everywhere. And the bag of cement, the cost for the southern sector is the same everywhere. So think about your company. How is your company's core competence aligned to be able to serve the market it has? Then you develop the needed supply chain capabilities. So GASM has developed a lot of capabilities, some of which I cannot see on tape. But you find that some of the things they have done is that they have GASM branded trucks. No, they may be privately owned, but they are GASM branded. Then we have GASM branded outlets, where you go and then the whole shop is printed GASM. It is to help in the advertising. Then they have companies who haul the cement. They have wholesalers dotted across the country who serve the small retailers. Then we have those outlets where people can buy 100 and so on. So that is what it has done. So those are the 3 steps. So first, you understand the market that you serve. You look at your core competence and see how it is aligned to serve the market. And then you develop the needed supply chain capability to support this. So if you understand the markets your company serves, or to understand the markets your company serves, then look at what kind of customers that the company serves. What kind of customers do they sell to? What kind of supply chain is the company a part of? By the time you are able to tell this or to answer these questions, you are able to know what supply chain the company serves and whether the supply chain needs to emphasize responsiveness or efficiency. Don't forget, if you are emphasizing responsiveness, then cost is not your business. You want to be close to the customer. So you see such companies having plenty warehouses or plenty distributors or plenty wholesalers. Those emphasizing efficiency will have fewer outlets, fewer but maybe big, except that they want to manage costs. So if they are pursuing efficiency as a strategy, then cost is key in whatever they do. Those pursuing responsiveness think of what to do first before they think of the cost. These are 2 different emphases that organizations pay attention to, and it yields different actions. So the requirements of the market could be the quantity of the products, the response time, the variety of the products needed, the service level, the price, and the desired rate of innovation. In fact, some products are such that people are looking for new ones every day. Ask those in Casapreco, those in this bitters production. Why do you think every day they are producing a new one? People want to try new things every day. You see that they don't stop producing the old ones, but they keep producing new ones, and then sometimes they bring back the old one with a slight change in its taste or composition. You have to look at if you are in the electronic business, it is the same. People are looking for new things, gadgets that can do more. So now, if you have to define the core competence of your organization, then you are looking at what kind of supply chain participants does your company have. Is your company, is it a producer, a distributor, a retailer, or a service provider? What does your company do to enable the supply chain work? That is the supply chain that it is a part of. What does it do to help it work? So, is it the one responsible for providing the raw materials, or your company is the one responsible for transforming the raw materials? Or maybe your company is the one responsible for bringing the product closer to the customer. You have to know what you do to enable that supply chain. What are your core competencies, and how does your company make money? By the time you answer these ones, you will know what roles in the supply chain will be the best fit for your company. Then you develop the needed supply chain capabilities. Once you have satisfied the first 2, the next is to take steps to develop your capabilities. And you can do so by looking at the 5 supply chain drivers. So you develop a guide by the decisions made about the 5 supply chain drivers. And each of these drivers can be developed and managed to emphasize responsiveness or efficiency depending on the business requirements. At this point, you should take a minute to refresh your mind on the 5 supply chain drivers and think of how they can be used to emphasize responsiveness or efficiency. So we have production, facilities, inventory, transportation, and information. So now these drivers, how are they going to help you achieve efficiency or responsiveness? That will flow from the business strategy. So the kind of business strategy you have will flow into your supply chain strategy. The supply chain strategy will emphasize either efficiency or responsiveness. And each of these comes into play. If you are emphasizing responsiveness, production must be swift. Facilities must be up and doing and must be close to the customer. Inventory must be kept a lot, because to be responsive means every time the customer needs the product, it is available. Transportation must be at its best. Anytime there is the need to move the product, it is moved in record time, and information is passed on in a timely fashion. If you are emphasizing efficiency, you may take your time to produce with fewer facilities, store little, but your transportation must be efficient, so that whenever the people need the product, you are able to supply it to them, and information must also flow, and flow very well. So after this slide, now ask yourself, draw this chart for your organization. What is the business strategy? And what has been the supply chain strategy of your organization? Is it responsiveness or efficiency? If you are not sure which one it is, just look at production. How many facilities? What is the nature of production? Is it every day, or it is as and when? Is it produced to store or produced just in time? How many facilities are you using? What is the attitude of the organization towards inventory? How do you treat transportation? As for information, for both of them, it will be about the same. So just check these things. When you realize that the organization is adamant to keeping more inventory and too many facilities, then it is pursuing the efficiency strategy. On the other hand, if you find the organization not caring too much about the number of facilities, it is just concerned about the customers being satisfied. Okay, let's create a warehouse. Is it that we don't have a warehouse in Western region? Please, let's get a warehouse there. We don't want our customers to be struggling. We don't have a warehouse in Wa. Let's create it. When you see an organization with that kind of attitude, then it is pursuing the responsiveness strategy. Some organizations may even be doing it without knowing. So when you are diagnosing, look at what they do in terms of production, how swift it is. What is the attitude towards it? In terms of facilities and the number of facilities, what is the attitude? Keeping of inventory, what is the attitude? How do we treat transportation? By the time you will have done this analysis, you will know whether this organization is pursuing efficiency or responsiveness. So, to end it all, we say that usually to be successful in managing your supply chain, you must understand the requirements of your customers, you must define your core competence, and you must develop the supply chain capabilities. Now, if you come down to that, if you look at production, for responsive organizations, there's excess capacity, there's flexible manufacturing, there are many smaller factories. If you look at those pursuing efficiency, you see that there's very little excess capacity. The capacity they have now can just produce what the customers need. There's a narrow focus. They are not thinking of too many different products or too many outlets. No. And then there are very few, but central plants. So they produce at some point and supply to all. What of inventory? High inventory as against low inventory. I mentioned that before. A wide range of items, and then inefficiency, very few items. We don't want to keep too many things. Location, many locations and close to the customer. Efficiency, fewer locations. Transportation, very frequent. Shipments are few and in large quantities. Slower pace. Information is collected and shared in a timely and accurate fashion. Cost of information drops while other costs rise. So, in a nutshell, we say that supply chain capabilities of responsiveness and efficiency come from decisions made about the 5 supply chain drivers. The 5 supply chain drivers: production, facilities, inventory, location, production, inventory, location, transportation, and information. Many times we add facilities to inventory or to production. And then, in a broad sense, we say that the broad function of the supply chain integrates several different activities ranging from procurement to physical distribution. And in most organizations, the cost of these activities is typically around 15 to 20% of revenue. So, supply chain is in an awkward position of being both essential and expensive. This means that any disruption can be very damaging, not only to the logistics department, but the whole organization and even the broader supply chain. Because if you are a supplier or a haulage company for cocoa board, and cocoa board is not buying cocoa again, are you not technically out of business? You are. That's the broader supply chain. So this organization is encouraging more logistics managers to consider formal methods for managing risk, and the essence of adding supply chain risk management to the curriculum. Thank you. Like I always say, if you have any concerns, please contact elearning@knusd.edu.gh or elearningknusd@gmail.com on 020-5515-494. Thank you very much.